of Tobit is one book among the fascinating collection of books known commonly as either Deuterocanonical in the Catholic and Big O Orthodox churches or the Apocrypha in some Protestant churches. And there has been much debate on the value and authority of these books, ranging from they are scripture to they have great value to they are complete junk. And I'll let you decide for yourself the theological authority of these books, but I will argue they are historically important because they give a glimpse into the historical situation in which they are written, which for many is the period between the two testaments, the Old and the New, which helps us to understand the stage upon which Jesus entered. And whether you see these books as canonical or as theological rubbish, their impact might be bigger than you think. And that brings us back to the book of Tobit. Just how impactful is this book? Welcome, explorers, and Tobit is an interesting tale written before Jesus' incarnation. It is a book that deals with suffering and justice and questions that we still wrestle with today. And here is a very quick summation of this book. Tobit is a righteous man who is blind, a good person who is suffering. Tobit has a son named Tobias, and together they live in Nineveh, and Tobias is sent by Tobit on a quest to the city of Ecbatana to retrieve some money. And off on this quest, Tobias departs. In Ecbatana, prior to Tobias' arrival, we meet Sarah, a faithful woman whose husbands keep dying. Again, a good person who is suffering. Sarah has been married 7 times, and in each marriage, the demon Asmodeus kills each husband on the wedding night before consummation. And this gives Sarah a terrible reputation because people believed she was killing her husbands, and she considers suicide, but she relents from this idea because her father does not have anyone to take care of him other than her. So she prays. And Tobit, the blind father of Tobias, also prays. And God hears their prayers and decides to heal them both of their afflictions. Now back to Tobias and his quest to Ecbatana. During his journey, he is aided by the angel named Raphael. And during his travels to Ecbatana, Tobias is washing in the Tigris River. And just then, a great fish leaps up to devour Tobias. And the angel Raphael tells Tobias to take the fish. So Tobias wrestles the fish to the shore, and then the angel says to take the liver and the heart of the fish because they can repel demons, and also to take the gall of the fish because it's good for the eyes. And Tobias cooks up the rest of the fish for supper. Tobias then reaches Ecbatana, and God brings Tobias and Sarah together, and there are wedding bells in Tobias and Sarah's future. They wed, and Raguel, Sarah's father, actually digs a grave for Tobias, not expecting him to live through the night. But Tobias remembers the word of the angel Raphael. He burns the heart and liver of the fish, and the smoke drives away the demon Asmodeus, and Tobias survives the night. Sarah is delivered from her demonic oppressor and has a good husband in Tobias. Tobias, again following the words of Raphael about the fish's gall being good for the eyes, returns to his father and anoints Tobit's eyes with the gall of the fish, and Tobit is healed and can see. And the book ends with Tobit praising God. And again, that's an oversimplification, but this book had an impressive resume even before Jesus' incarnation. Tobit is included in the Septuagint. The Septuagint is a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible that scholarship argues were translated as early as the 3rd century BCE and as late as the 1st century BCE. Tobit was at least considered to be scripture by the compilers of the Hebrew Bible used for the Septuagint translation, and Tobit's influence continues after Jesus' day. It is included as scripture in the important Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus, and is affirmed as Old Testament scripture by Augustine and Pope Innocent I. Tobit is still considered as secondary scripture, or deuterocanonical if you want the $10 word, by the Catholic Church and many Big O Orthodox churches. Also, it is a part of the Apocrypha used by many Protestant churches, which are not considered scripture, but useful to read. But the post-New Testament influence of Tobit is not our focus today, so let's return to the Bible. In the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, each record a story where some Sadducees pose a hypothetical question to Jesus. The Sadducees did not believe in the doctrine of the general resurrection. General resurrection being the belief that all of God's faithful will be resurrected to be with God after the great day of the Lord. And this hypothetical question was to prove to Jesus and to others that believing in general resurrection is totally absurd. Their hypothetical goes like this. There is a woman who was married 7 times to 7 brothers. She married one man and he died. So according to the law, she married his brother and he died. And so on and so forth until her 7 husbands all died. Then the woman died. And then they posed the question to Jesus, who will this woman be married to after the resurrection, since each of the 7 men were her husband? And in the minds of the Sadducees, this disproved the resurrection, because I guess it's ludicrous for a woman to have 7 husbands, or for there to be no marriage after the resurrection. I don't quite know how this disproved the resurrection, but the Sadducees thought this situation far too ridiculous for general resurrection to be true. God could never solve such a conundrum. And Jesus answers, we will be like the angels in our relationships. And I don't want to explore Jesus' answer here. I want to explore where the Sadducees got the idea of one woman marrying 7 husbands and all 7 husbands dying. Did the Sadducees get the idea from the book of Tobit? Well, it's ultimately unclear. Of course, there are some striking resemblances. It is a woman married 7 times and all 7 husbands die. That is exactly like Sarah and her first 7 marriages in Tobit. That similarity makes you want to jump up and down and say, yes, the Sadducees were reading Tobit. Now, Tobit does not mention that the 7 are brothers as the Gospels do, but with it being a good Jewish book, the likelihood of the 7 being assumed to be related by the readers of Tobit as the law prescribes is not a crazy leap. But there are some differences. Sarah isn't just married 7 times, she has an 8th marriage to Tobias. Also, 7 is a very common number used in Scripture from Genesis 1 with the 7 days of creation all the way to the myriad of ways 7 is used in the book of Revelation. So the idea that the Sadducees could have picked the number 7 independently from Tobit is possible. And yes, you will find scholarship split on the issue. Some say, yes, 7 marriages and 7 dead husbands. The Gospels are absolutely using Tobit for inspiration here. Others will say Sarah was married 8 times and the number of 7 is common, so it could have been chosen independently. Either way, I find the striking resemblance between Sarah losing 7 husbands and this hypothetical woman in the Gospel losing 7 husbands to be incredibly interesting. And I hope you do as well. I wonder what wonders I could do with fish guts. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and my bibliography is in the description below. Be blessed.